Here's a hard truth. Your leadership team might be the biggest barrier to change. Research by John Cotter shows that 70% of change initiatives stall or fail when executives aren't aligned from the start. The stakes are high. Without top-level unity, even the best strategies can collapse. Consider Barry Wemiller's approach during a sudden 30% drop in orders. Instead of layoffs, their leadership team aligned quickly and rolled out a furlough program, sharing the burden across the organization. This top-down alignment not only saved jobs, but also strengthened trust and morale. But executive alignment is just one factor. To drive real change, you need to understand what's happening beneath the surface when resistance appears. If you're new here, please subscribe and like, because I share tips to help you improve your career. Resistance to change isn't about stubbornness. It's a predictable human response rooted in psychology and biology. Neuroscience shows that when people encounter change, the brain's threat response activates, leading to stress that can limit learning and adaptability. Leaders who overlook this reaction risk misinterpreting natural anxiety as active defiance, which can derail even the best planned initiatives. In fact, studies indicate that 70 to 80% of change projects stall or fail when leaders don't address these underlying responses. At the core, four primary fears drive most pushback: loss of control, uncertainty about what's ahead, doubts about one's ability to adapt, and the prospect of extra work. These aren't just abstract concepts. They show up in real workplace behavior. For example, research on Italian hotel housekeepers found that simply reframing their daily tasks as valuable exercise, rather than routine chores, led to measurable improvements in health and job satisfaction. This mindset shift addressed fears of insignificance and lack of control, boosting both engagement and openness to new routines. Leaders who diagnose which fear is at play can address resistance more effectively. When change is introduced without considering how it will impact different groups, employees often cling to familiar routines. Behavioral economics explains why. The status quo bias causes people to overvalue what they already know, while loss aversion makes them focus more on potential negatives than on possible benefits. Add to this the planning fallacy, where teams underestimate the time and effort needed for adoption, and it's clear why resistance is so persistent. Tailoring your approach to these psychological realities is essential. For instance, sales teams may worry about losing client relationships, while IT staff may fear job security threats from outsourcing. Each group's concerns require targeted communication and support, not just generic reassurances. Ignoring these differences can create blind spots in your change plan and slow adoption across the board. Recognizing that resistance is feedback, not just an obstacle, opens the door to more effective strategies. The next step is understanding why a uniform approach rarely works, and how customizing your methods for each group can make all the difference. Tailoring your approach begins with understanding how change impacts each group differently. In practice, what works for one team can fall flat for another. For example, a medical device company introduced new production protocols using virtual reality simulations for factory workers. This hands-on method allowed employees to practice assembling equipment in a low-risk environment, which led to faster adoption and fewer errors. Meanwhile, research teams at the same company received detailed API documentation and sandbox environments, aligning the training with their technical needs. These cases highlight the value of customizing support and communication to match both the tasks and learning preferences of each role. The ADKA model offers a structured way to guide this customization. For awareness, it's not enough to announce a change. Leaders must explain why it matters to each department. When a pharmaceutical company adopted electronic lab notebooks, scientists were shown how the new system would reduce data errors in clinical trials, while administrative staff learned about improved compliance reporting. This targeted messaging resulted in higher early adoption rates. Cultivating desire means identifying what motivates different groups. In one technology firm, engineers responded to messages about career growth and new technical challenges, while support teams were more interested in how changes would reduce overtime and streamline workflows. Addressing these unique drivers helps build genuine buy-in rather than surface-level agreement. Knowledge transfer is most effective when it fits how people learn. Research teams often want in-depth technical guides, while frontline staff benefit from interactive or scenario-based training. For instance, VR modules allowed hospital housekeepers to practice new cleaning protocols, which increased both confidence and speed on the job. Ability, the next stage, involves providing ongoing opportunities to practice and refine new skills. A bank launching AI-driven loan processing offered underwriters a period to compare machine recommendations with their own decisions, reducing anxiety and building trust in the new system. Reinforcement ensures that the change sticks. Some organizations use skill certifications for individual contributors and real-time dashboards for managers, tying new behaviors directly to performance outcomes. A logistics company, for example, displayed side-by-side metrics comparing warehouses that adopted new routing algorithms with those that hadn't, making progress visible and meaningful. It's also important to recognize that not everyone adopts change at the same pace. Early adopters often seek out new tools and want access to technical details, while others prefer to see proven results before fully engaging. Mapping these adoption profiles allows you to tailor communication and support, making the process more inclusive and efficient. Ultimately, the most effective change leaders design experiences that feel relevant and practical for each group. When a global hotel chain rolled out a new booking system, they didn't rely on generic training. Instead, they created property-specific scenarios. Urban hotels practiced managing corporate accounts, while resort staff focused on activity package upsells. This level of specificity helped employees see the change as a useful tool, not just another mandate. Personalizing your approach not only reduces resistance, but also sets the stage for stronger engagement. It's this foundation that makes the difference between compliance and true ownership, which becomes even more important as we look at how inclusive strategies can transform the trajectory of a change initiative. If you're finding this helpful, please subscribe and like, because it helps us create content that matters to you. Also, if you want to take your skills further, check out our executive education and executive coaching programs at execbeat.com. Inclusive change strategies often make the difference between stalled initiatives and lasting results. Consider Southwest Airlines' approach to safety and process improvement. Instead of relying solely on top-down directives, leadership regularly invited gate agents and ground crews to identify operational pain points and propose solutions. This direct involvement led to streamlined boarding procedures and more effective safety checks, uncovering practical fixes that executives alone would have missed. The lesson is clear: when employees participate in shaping new systems, they are more likely to embrace and sustain them. Research supports this. Studies show that change initiatives designed with employee input are 40% more likely to achieve long-term success than those imposed from the top down. Bob Chapman, CEO of Barry-Wehmiller, exemplified this during a downturn by involving employees in designing a furlough program. Rather than resorting to layoffs, Chapman asked teams for ideas on how to share the burden. Employees proposed voluntary unpaid leave, which not only protected jobs, but also fostered a sense of shared purpose and trust throughout the company. The approach worked because people felt respected and empowered, not sidelined. Real-world examples show that inclusive change uncovers critical details that might otherwise be overlooked. In one hospital network, leadership didn't simply hand down a new medication checklist. Instead, they engaged nurses to share stories about near misses, which revealed that interruptions, not lack of knowledge, were the main cause of errors. The solution combined streamlined documentation and designated quiet zones for critical tasks, leading to a measurable drop in mistakes. This outcome was possible because those closest to the work helped design the fix. The mechanics of inclusion matter. Open-door policies are rarely enough. Structured mechanisms, like scheduled co-design workshops or pilot programs with real-time feedback, surface insights that traditional surveys miss. When a logistics firm automated dispatch routing, executives set the target, but let drivers propose how to reach it. Their on-the-ground suggestions, such as clustering deliveries by micro-weather patterns, not only met but exceeded efficiency goals. Involving employees at every stage ensures the solutions are relevant and practical, not just theoretically sound. Ownership isn't a vague concept, it's visible in adoption rates, fewer workarounds, and more sustained improvements. Neuroscience research shows that when people contribute to solutions, they process change as a personal achievement rather than an external imposition. This sense of agency turns reluctant compliance into active engagement. Inclusive strategies don't replace executive vision, they balance it. Leadership sets direction and constraints, but teams shape the path. When employees see their fingerprints on the outcome, resistance often fades and commitment deepens. This balance is what separates fleeting compliance from true transformation, setting up organizations for sustained progress as they move forward. Driving meaningful change requires making change management a central strategy, not an afterthought. Research consistently shows that leaders who anticipate resistance and address its root causes, like fear and uncertainty, are better positioned for long-term success. The goal isn't to eliminate resistance, but to understand its signals and use them to guide your approach. As you look ahead to your next initiative, take a focused step. Ask yourself, have I mapped the unspoken fears in my team as Dr. Benedetti did with pain patients? Then, conduct a brief readiness survey using the 4-scenario framework to identify where alignment and concerns exist. This practical assessment is where effective transformation begins. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like because it helps us bring you more free videos. And if you're ready to grow your career, visit execbeat.com to learn about our executive education and coaching.